Medical carriers, genetic screening and diagnosis. The rapid development in genetics are transforming our understanding of the disease process, and the vast amount of genetic information now available allows the study of not only the functions, but also the interactions between genes in the human genome. Scientists are also studying gene-environment interactions, as well as the functions of other regulatory areas of the genome. This is the exciting field of genomics. Research in genomics is helping explain the genetic basis of many common, chronic diseases with multifactorial causes such as cancer, heart disease, and mental illness. However, medical science is making exciting discoveries in the nascent field of genomic healthcare, such as genetic influence on disease predisposition, an understanding of people's health needs based on their individual genetic makeup, and the genetic basis of treatment response, allowing the development of new and highly effective therapies. Diagnostic tools that are quite effective have also been created. Additionally, a much anticipated outcome of these technological advances is that new and more accurate diagnostics have rapidly become available. Healthcare professionals must therefore keep up with recommendations for treatments and interventions that are being researched and tailored to diagnostic results. Also, as genetic knowledge and technologies become more mainstream, patients are increasingly asking their healthcare providers about genetic tests and disease risks. As a consequence, the National Coalition for Health Professional Education in Genetics is committed to educating healthcare providers about current genetic and genomic research. The establishment of and need for such organization is indicative of the growing responsibilities of all healthcare providers during the ongoing revolution in genomic healthcare. The duties of genetic healthcare professionals have evolved to meet the demands for generating new genetic knowledge, accurately disseminating this knowledge to the public, and generating and interpreting genetic results. Such professionals includes clinical geneticists, clinical laboratory geneticists, research scientists, genetic counselors, and genetic nurses. There is a specialist involved in each step of process of making genetic discoveries in the laboratory and then bringing them to the general public. Clinical geneticists and clinical laboratory geneticists. The clinical geneticist is a clinician who makes a diagnosis based on clinical examination of patients along with various test results that aid in confirming the diagnosis. In cases of inherited disorders, the clinical geneticist not only must recognize the need for and value of genetic testing, but he or she is also responsible for properly interpreting the results and making treatment or management recommendations. Types of genetic testing that are available include carrier testing for autosomal recessive and X-linked disorders, molecular or cytogenetic diagnostic testing, pharmacogenomic testing to determine how a patient might respond to a type or class of drug, and susceptibility or predictive testing such as BRCA1 and BRCA2 testing to determine risk of breast cancer.
The following are the different types and uses of genetic tests. So first is we have the carrier testing. Individuals with a family history of a certain disorder who want to know their chances of having a child with that disorder frequently utilize this type of test. Examples of genetic disorder that can be detected in this kind of test is the cystic fibrosis and the Tay Sachs disease. Next is we have the prenatal diagnosis. When an ultrasound shows an abnormality in a fetus and a mother wants a precise genetic diagnosis, this type of test is typically used. Examples of genetic disorder that can be detected in this test is the Down syndrome. Third is we have the newborn screening. It is a series of tests performed on 1 to 2-day-old infants, including blood, hearing, and heart screening, usually before they leave the hospital. This is to check for any serious health disorders that do not show signs at birth. Examples of genetic disorders that can be detected in this test is the phenylketonuria and the congenital hypothyroidism. Fourth is we have the testing for late onset disorders. Some illnesses, such as a certain type of cancer, may be linked to a genetic predisposition to disease under certain environmental conditions according to genetic testing. Huntington's disease, for an example, has a known genetic cause but only manifests later in life and can be tested for at any time. Examples of genetic disorders that can be detected in this test is cancer and Huntington's disease. Fifth is we have the pharmacogenomic testing. Patients who require specific medications, such as warfarin, may be subjected to a genetic test to determine the expected rate of drug metabolism, providing crucial information to the doctor for proper dosage. Examples of genetic disorders that can be detected in this kind of test is the cytochrome P450. Lastly is we have the identification. In paternity cases or law enforcement situations, genetic testing can help in identifying a person or an individual. Example of genetic disorders that can be detected in this test is the genetic profile or DNA fingerprint. So those are the tests that are typically performed by a diagnostic laboratory that is overseen by a clinical laboratory geneticist, who is responsible for maintenance of the lab's certifications, training of the scientific staff, and verifying each report of findings.
Research scientist. A research scientist may investigate the characteristics and life cycles of organisms that create disease, as well as perform clinical trials for the treatment of the ailments in the population. So, ang mga research scientists ay inaaral nila kung paano nabuo or kung ano yung origin ng disease at kung anong virus or microorganisms ang responsible. And sila din yung nagtutuklas sa kung anong pwedeng gamot or treatment sa disease na yun. Just for example, yung sa COVID, wala pang specific na gamot para dito, but they created vaccines to at least protect us from it. This may include studying and culturing microbes in the lab, but it can also include tracking trends in the community and developing better interventions through the testing of medications and treatment. Research scientists would have the following expectations as a part of their works: study ways diseases affect the population and consider new method of treatment, analyze biological samples and collect data, investigate drug standardization in the treatment of illnesses, collaborate with other professionals to develop treatment strategies, and to provide reports that outline finding and suggestion for moving forwards. Next is genetic counselor. Genetic counselors provide a critical service to individuals and families considering undergoing genetic testing by helping them identify the risk of certain disorders, investigate family health history, interpret information, and determine if testing is needed. So, sila yung pupuntahan natin para malaman natin kung yung family ba natin is mayroong genetic disorder na background. For example, high blood, ganun, like diabetes. Sila yung responsible kung pwede ba, sila yung pwede nating puntahan para magtanong kung possible ba na ma-acquire din natin yung genetic disorder na meron yung family natin. The genetic counseling process helps people understand and adapt to the medical, psychological, and familial implications of genetic contributions to disease. Napaka-importante na malaman natin kung meron bang genetic disease kung family natin para malaman natin kung ano yung proper way of curing it, and pwede din naman siyang prevention. Most genetic counselors see patients in a clinic or hospital setting and often work with obstetricians, oncologists, and other doctors. Like doctors, genetic counselors can work in a variety of settings that provide different services. They may provide general care or specialize in one or more areas, including prenatal and preconception, for women and their partners who are pregnant or thinking about becoming a pregnant. May mga cases na bago sila or in the process of planning a family, geriatric for children and their family members, cancer for patients with cancer and their family members, cardiovascular for patients with diseases of the heart or circulatory system and their family members, neurology for patients with diseases of the brain and nervous system and their family. As in addition to counseling, genetic counselors also communicate with laboratories about tests they offer, advocating for patients with their insurance company, and notifying patients about their test results. Lastly, genetic nurse. A genetic nurse is a licensed professional nurse with special education and trainings in genetics. So, ano ang pinagkaiba ng genetic nurse sa nurses natin sa hospitals? Ang genetic nurse ay nag-undergo ng education. Most probably, they take up masterals na specialize sa genetics. Genetic nurses help people at risk for affected by diseases with genetic component achieve and maintain health. Many common diseases are now known to have a genetic component, including cancer, heart disease, diabetes, and Alzheimer's. Genetic nurses perform risk assessment, analyze the genetic contribution to disease risk, and discuss the impact of risk on healthcare management for individuals and families. They also provide genetic education, provide nursing care to patients and families, and conduct research in genetics. Mapapansin natin na ang job description ng isang genetic nurse at genetic counselor ay somewhat similar to each other. The only difference is that the education required. Sa genetic nurse, kailangan na mayroon silang bachelor's degree in nursing. We are now done with the medical careers, genetic screening, and diagnosis part of our report. Now let us proceed to ontologies, scientific data sharing made easy.